The shoes split open on a Tuesday night. Emeka heard it before he felt it, a sharp, ugly pop at the sole of his right foot, the leather peeling away from the base like a dead skin. He stopped walking, looked down, and let out a long, slow breath through his nose. He had 30 minutes to get to Adaeze's house. He had no other shoes. He had 80 naira in his pocket and a small cellophane bag of chin-chin he had bought from the woman by the bus stop, because Adaeze liked chin-chin and because 80 naira was all he had left after paying his younger sister's school fee. He sat on the gutter edge and held the shoe in his hands for a moment. Then he went back to his room, found a razor blade and a bottle of rubber cement he used for model work, and spent 22 minutes pressing the sole back into place, holding it firm with both hands, praying it would hold. It did, mostly. He walked the rest of the way to Adaeze's house with a slight tilt in his right step, and when she opened the door and smiled at him, he did not tell her about the shoe. He just smiled back, handed her the chin-chin, and said, "I missed you today." She laughed. "You saw me yesterday, Emeka." "I know," he said. "I still missed you." That was the thing about him. Even in his poverty, he was generous with the parts of himself that cost nothing: his time, his words, his presence. He had grown up in a compound in Enugu with 6 other families sharing one borehole, his mother selling akara by the gate, his father working a security job that paid just enough to keep the children in school but never enough to keep the lights on past 10. Emeka had learned early that dignity was not something money gave you. It was something you carried yourself, quietly, like good posture. He had met Adaeze in their final year of secondary school. She sat 2 rows ahead of him and she had a habit of turning around to borrow a pen she never returned. The third time she did it, he had said, "You know, at this rate, I'll need to start charging you." She had looked at him, really looked at him, and laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real one. He never recovered from it. By the time they were 22, they had been together for 3 years. He hawked pure water on weekends, did data entry at a printing shop during the week, and saved every spare naira in a brown envelope he kept under his mattress. He was building. Slowly, painfully, but building. And Adaeze was what he was building toward. But there were signs. He just refused to read them. She talked about Lagos the way other people talked about heaven, like it was a place where real life happened, where real men existed. "My cousin says her husband just bought a Highlander," she would say, and Emeka would nod and think, one day. One day. She started saying things like, "I don't want to struggle forever, Emeka. I need a man who has arrived." And he would reach across and take her hand and say, "I'm arriving. Just give me time." She would smile and say nothing. But the smile had started to change. It was slower now. Like something tired. He noticed, but he explained it away. He was good at that. Chikwudi arrived in their lives through her friend Priscilla. Nobody said his name directly at first. He was just a car, a black Prado that started appearing on Adaeze Street on Thursday evenings. Then he was a voice on her phone that made her leave the room to talk. Then he was a name. "Chikwudi is just a family friend," she said, the first time Emeka asked. "He knows my uncle in Lagos." Emeka nodded slowly. Something moved in his chest. He ignored it. 3 weeks later, Adaeze stopped picking up his calls after 8 p.m. 2 weeks after that, she started canceling their plans with small, quiet excuses. The chin-chin visits stopped. The late-night texts got shorter. One-word replies. Then no replies until morning. Emeka sat with all of this and told himself it was stress. That she was tired. That he was overthinking. He was not overthinking. He had saved enough for a proper dinner, a restaurant with menus and tablecloths and a waiter who called them sir and ma. He had been planning it for months. He made the reservation on a Wednesday. He wore the only button-up shirt he owned, ironed twice. He arrived early and sat and waited. She came 20 minutes late, distracted already, her phone face up on the table, the screen lighting up every few minutes. Halfway through the meal she excused herself to take a call, and when she came back her eyes were somewhere else entirely. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "Fine," she said. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. And neither were they. He just didn't know it yet. The text came the following Friday. He was at the printing shop, running a batch of photocopies, when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He read it standing up. Then he sat down on the floor between two machines because his legs stopped working. Emeka, I think we should stop seeing each other. You deserve someone on your level. Please don't make this hard. Take care of yourself. He called her 4 times. She did not pick up. He called Tabena, his closest friend, that night and said, she ended it. Tabena was quiet for a long moment and then he said, carefully, Emeka. I heard something. I didn't know how to tell you. And then he told him. Shokwudi. The Lagos big man. The Prado. The family connections that turned into something else. Tabena had heard from Priscilla that there was a wedding being planned. That it had been in motion for a while. Emeka sat in his room with the lights off for most of that night. He did not cry. He sat very still, in the dark, and at some point he reached under his mattress and pulled out his savings, the brown envelope, and counted the money slowly. He put it back. Then he opened a small notepad, wrote one word in the middle of the page, and closed it. The word was, okay. Nobody who knew what it cost him would have called it okay. But it was a decision. And Emeka had always been better at decisions than feelings. He left Enugu 6 weeks later. Lagos swallowed him immediately, the way Lagos swallowed everyone, without apology or ceremony. He slept on Tabena's cousin's floor for 2 months. He found a data entry job that paid 12,000 naira a month and he took it without complaint. He bought a second-hand laptop with 3 months of savings and started teaching himself software at midnight, YouTube tutorials with the volume low so he didn't wake anyone. He failed at it repeatedly. He kept going. Quietly, stubbornly, like a man with a reason he wasn't ready to name. In his second year, he built a small tracking tool for a market woman who was losing money because her delivery boys were stealing from her routes. He charged her nothing. She told 6 other market women. They told others. He built a simple logistics platform, nothing fancy, clean and practical, that let small retailers and traders track their deliveries by SMS. It spread through Alaba, then Oshodi, then further. A small tech firm noticed it in his 4th year and offered to partner. He didn't sell. He took the investment, kept control, and kept building. He was 29 when the compound in Abuja was completed. 3 bedrooms, a small garden, a gate with an intercom. He hired 2 staff. He funded a tailoring cooperative quietly, the kind of thing he never talked about at dinner tables. Tabena visited once and stood in the living room and said, "Guy, you did this." Emeka shrugged and said, "I told her I was arriving." He said it without bitterness, the way a man states a fact about weather. He had not heard Adaeze's name in years. He heard it through the compound walls. It was a Thursday morning, early, the kind of morning that is still half night, the air cold and slightly damp. Emeka was at his desk reviewing contracts when the intercom crackled. Emmanuel, his gateman, spoke carefully, the way he always did when something felt unusual. "Oga. Good morning, sir. There is one woman outside. She say she know you. She carry 2 small Pekin." Emeka put down his pen. He sat for a moment. Something shifted in his chest, not excitement, not anger. Just a quiet, heavy recognition, like a door you thought was locked turning out not to be. "Send her in," he said. Then, immediately, "Wait. Don't. I'm coming out." He walked to the gate himself. He opened it himself. She was standing on the other side with 2 children, a girl of about 4 and a boy who looked barely 2, his face half buried in her wrapper. Adaeze had lost weight in a way that wasn't healthy. Her eyes were swollen from what was either a cold or a long night of crying. She was wearing a blouse he didn't recognize and slippers that were too loose on her feet. She held the children's hands and she looked at him and she opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Emeka. Just his name. That was all she managed before her eyes filled completely. He looked at her for a long time. He looked at the children. The boy was now staring at him with wide, solemn eyes, sensing that something important was happening without understanding it. The girl was leaning against her mother's side, quiet. Emeka stepped back from the gate and said, without emotion, without theater, Emmanuel. Bring chairs to the veranda. Tell Mama Tun to bring food and water. He walked her inside. On the veranda, while the children ate rice and stew, the girl eating seriously, the boy making a mess and not caring, Adaeze told him everything. Her voice was flat from exhaustion. Chukwudi's business had collapsed. EFCC. Frozen assets. He had disappeared 2 months ago. Some said Ghana. Some said he was already in custody somewhere. The house went. The accounts went. Her family had tried, but resources were thin and patience thinner. She had nowhere else to go. She had thought of him for weeks before she came. But I'm not going to pretend I owe you something I don't, he said. What I'm going to do, I'm doing because of who I am. Not because of what we were. Do you understand the difference? She nodded, barely. Her chin trembled. He made one call. A woman named Chidinma who ran the tailoring cooperative he funded on the other side of the city. He spoke for 3 minutes. When he hung up, he looked at Adaeze and said, there's a place nearby. Small, decent. You and the children can stay there for 3 months, free. After that, Chidinma will help you find work, real work, something sustainable. The rest is up to you. Adaeze opened her mouth. He raised one hand, gently, not unkindly. You don't have to say anything, he said. She said it anyway. I'm sorry, Emeka. He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded once, slowly, not as forgiveness exactly, but as something close to it. As release. Later that evening, after they had left and the compound was quiet again, Emeka went back to his desk. He opened the top drawer. At the back, behind folders and a broken pen, was the small notepad from 12 years ago. He picked it up. He did not open it. He sat with it in his hand for a long moment, in the quiet, and then he placed it back in the drawer and returned to his contracts. He had written one word that night in Enugu. One word that had carried him across a decade of hunger and silence and discipline and grief, all the way to this house, this gate, this life. He had never needed to open it again. He had already become the answer.